What's going on, guys? This is going to be part 2 to What If Jiraiya Became the Fifth Hokage. If you've not seen part 1, I recommend going to the What If playlist and looking for What If Jiraiya Became Fifth Hokage part 1, because part 2 is going to pick up exactly where part 1 left off. So if you guys don't want to feel left behind, I recommend checking out the first video. This one is going to start just at the start of the Akatasuki suppression arc. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into part 2 of What If Jiraiya Became Fifth Hokage. The invasion of Hidan and Kakuzu is still continue as far as with the Land of Fire, but where things get really interesting is if Naruto learns the Rasen Shuriken. I do believe that by this point Naruto would have learned wind release, change in chakra nature, but it's debatable if Kakashi is the one who oversees Naruto's development when it comes to the creation of the Rasen Shuriken. I do believe, however, that Naruto would go on to learn it due to the fact that he would still be behind in Sasuke when it comes to some areas, despite being physically stronger than Sasuke. This also means that Kakashi goes to back up Shikamaru when Asuma dies, and Team 10 is going on a suicide mission to try and beat Hidan and Kakuzu alone. This would also mean that Naruto and Team 7 would join Kakashi a lot sooner. The reason for this is that the time spent that was devoted to having Naruto learn his change in chakra nature, then how to use wind release in the basic form, it wouldn't be factored into the training since Naruto would already know wind release at this point. This also means that Naruto more than likely creates the Rasen Shuriken a lot sooner. However, I do believe that if he's trying it out using Sage Mode, that Naruto learns that he can hurl the jutsu in a Sage Mode, which cuts down on the chances of the jutsu failing since it doesn't require him to get a running start in order to hit a target. This ultimately means that Hidan is defeated by Shikamaru and Kakuzu is struck down by the Sage Mode hurled Rasen Shuriken by Naruto. This also means that Naruto would suffer no damage at the end of this fight, with Orochimaru being dead as well as 3 key members of the Akatasuki dead as well, and Deidara now locked away in Konoha if he hasn't already been executed after having his mind being read. Obito would have no choice but to have Pain take a more aggressive stance when it comes to hunting down the remaining Biju. At this point, the Biju 1 through 4 were already sealed away, and we have to remember that 2 Biju were also captured and sealed away during the time skip, which brings the total number of tailed beasts that the Akatasuki have sealed away at being 6. There would only be 3 Biju left to hunt down, which is going to be very important depending on how the story progresses. However, the real wrench in this plan comes when Itachi manages to get Sasuke alone for their fight. He likely does so when Sasuke is leading his team at Ganin on a mission, and if he does so after Sasuke's team finishes the mission, then I could definitely see a scenario where Itachi has Sasuke placed under a genjutsu, and all while this is happening, Itachi's filled with pride knowing that his younger brother is a Jonin for Konoha and is leading the next generation of ninja. And I definitely think that this would be very interesting to see just the interaction between these two. And because Sasuke is now face to face with Itachi for the first time in nearly 3 years, there is a chance that Sasuke's anger could boil, and given the fact that he has that curse mark, that's gonna be very interesting as well. I will say this much, there's a very strong chance that Sasuke is simply gonna take a page out of Minato's book, and he's gonna tell his team to go on without him all the way back to Konoha, or to finish off their mission if it's not done, and hope that nobody has their hand driven through the chest of a female team member, or no one plays hide and seek underneath a boulder. Now, the fight between Sasuke and Itachi is gonna be very interesting to break down, because despite Sasuke being more skilled than he was originally due to the fact he's been training with Kakashi, and Kakashi shows us some ways to use his Sharingan in ways that Orochimaru would not know how to use, I do see a situation where Sasuke actually ends up doing worse in this battle despite the other training that he's gotten, but I still see it playing out the same, with one of the big differences being is that Sasuke never develops Kirin at this point, so Sasuke wouldn't be able to hurl that at the very last moment. And I believe that since the story plays out the same, that you could have a scenario where even though Orochimaru's main body is dead, because Sasuke has that curse mark, Itachi goes through with this plan to have Orochimaru erupt out of that curse mark, and then Itachi seals away Orochimaru. Because Sasuke is a Jonin and has a group of his own Genin, there's a possibility that they might follow after him. However, I will say that given the fact that no one knows where Sasuke is, this also gives Obito a chance to speak to Sasuke alone and do so without any reason to pause. Now this is where things get interesting. So Sasuke having his own team in Genin does give Sasuke a reason to pause and reconsider the things that Obito's saying. Originally, Sasuke was left alone. Sasuke had just confronted some of his most major demons at this point and had already committed himself to walking down a path of darkness. In this case, Sasuke would have been in Konoha for 3 years. He would have had his own team at Genin, and his interactions with Naruto as well with the other members of Team 7 could play a huge role in making Sasuke not join Obito. Another thing to consider is that Sasuke, having seen his own team to gain and grow will plant seeds into his mind that will begin to make him doubt. However, we have to also remember that Obito's from the school of Madara when it comes to using talk no jutsu to manipulate people. I believe that Sasuke would take longer to see things Obito's way, but eventually he would win him over, though I'm of the mind state that if we go by the Sasuke Jin Raiden novel that's set in this time period, then if we look at that 13-day period between Itachi's death and when Sasuke first awakens his Mangekyo Sharingan, I could see a scenario where in this moment Sasuke takes the full 13 days before he decides to actually join Obito. Now this is where yet another major change would occur. Because Sasuke wouldn't have assembled Team Taka, Obito would have no choice but to team up with Sasuke as they went to capture the Eight Tails. Now being honest here, I see no scenario where Killer Bee manages to survive both Obito as well as Sasuke, despite the fact that Sasuke is now a lot weaker, and it's largely due to the fact that if anything were to begin to happen to Sasuke, because Obito's partnered up with Sasuke, Obito would not have to hold back his power, and at this point Killer Bee is not powerful enough to take down Obito if Obito's being serious. This would mean that Killer Bee is likely captured by Sasuke and by Obito, and this time there's no trail left behind in order to connect Sasuke to Konoha. Obito can use his Kamui to teleport into the village after Sasuke uses his Genjutsu on one of the guards to tell him how to get into the village and where exactly to find Killer Bee. Sasuke was only identified in the original story as he was carrying Killer Bee away, and one of the hidden cloud ninja was able to see the Uchiha crest on his back. But in this scenario, because Obito simply teleports them away, there's no way for them to be tracked. On the other side of things, I don't believe that Konoha would call a 5 Kage summit despite having that information about Deidara when it comes to Deidara and the other members of the Akatasuki, simply for the fact that the 5 great nations at this point were not on good terms. And because when you look at one of the things that Pain said when Pain was talking to Tsunade in the Pain arc, he told her that because all the Biju were taken from the other villages, that there were embers of war that were beginning to flame up. I do believe that Jiraiya would hold off on calling the 5 Kage summit until he was able to get a better temperature on what's going on in the shinobi world. Now, speaking of Jiraiya, this is where Jiraiya being Hokage does open up the door for the possibility that he isn't able to gather all the intel in the way that he did, especially now since he's Hokage and he has to put more energy into finding out what's going on in the other villages. We don't know the full extent of Jiraiya's information gathering process, but it's very safe to assume that he did have to go physically meet up with some people in some rather seedy locations, and Jiraiya, being the Hokage, wouldn't be able to physically go meet up with some of these people, and the reason being is the Hokage typically does not leave the village. Now, we've seen Naruto do that in the new era, but right now in the era where Naruto's Hokage, things are a lot more peaceful, so he's allowed that luxury. Now, this ultimately means that Jiraiya does not know who the leader of the Akatasuki could potentially be, or the fact that they're inside the Hidden Rain village, and when Pain does attack, this means that Konoha's not going to have the advantage of knowing some of the intel on the 6 Paths of Pain. However, the advantage of all of this is that Naruto would be a lot more powerful than he was originally, a little bit wiser, and he would not be fueled by anger as he first was when he faced Pain. Naruto already knows Sage Mode at this point, and both Jiraiya and Tsunade will both be in the village, which does bode well for Konoha. Also, if Pain does attack a bit sooner, like I believe he does, then there is a possibility that Team Guy has not left for their mission yet, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to err on the side of caution, play it safe, and assume that they've already left the village because we don't know the details of the mission that they took when they left, and we don't know when exactly they left when they're outside of the village. Still, Konoha, without all the prior intel about the Rinnegan even existing, still has a better chance at victory here and has a better chance of there not being as many casualties, and I'll explain to you guys why. So Kakashi obviously would have his Mangekyo, Naruto would be able to use Sage Mode, Tsunade would be able to heal people remotely on top of the Hokage office like she did originally, but she'd be able to do so a lot sooner because she doesn't have to worry about coordinating any type of defensive attacks. And Jiraiya would also be able to summon Manpa Toad to give him the chance to enter into Sage Mode whenever he needs to. I also do believe that Kakashi would be defeated in his battle with the Diva Path, but the major change here is that I don't think he dies, since Tsunade would already have Katsuyu healing people a lot sooner. In my opinion, there would be fewer casualties this time around as Konoha began to fight back against the 6 Paths of Pain and Konan. If Jiraiya stays on top of the Hokage office to coordinate these attacks, then I could see him already having Sage Mode prepared. I also believe that Jiraiya would know that the coming battle will be a lot harder to fight while trying to evacuate the villagers to fight off the six paths of pain, and I do think that he would hold off on sending Naruto into battle simply for the fact that Jiraiya does know that the six paths are after Naruto, and he would not want to send his pupil into a fight without having more intel on who exactly the enemy is and what their potential weaknesses could be. I also think that Jiraiya will be one step ahead and have the Toads on the ready outside the village to summon himself and Naruto to a spot outside the village. It will be here that the Diva Path would arrive on top of the Hokage office. Upon seeing Jiraiya stand before him in Sage mode wearing the clothes of the Hokage with Jiraiya's own face carved onto the Hokage monument, Nagato would have a different initial reaction than he did when he first spoke with Tsunade in the original timeline. However, I do want to say that there is a possibility that Pain still attacks right away, and for those of you guys who say, why is this the case? Why would he attack Jiraiya right on the spot? He didn't do that with Tsunade. I'll tell you guys to go back to volume 46 of the manga. So in volume 46, Pain noticed right away that Tsunade and the Anbu were molding their chakra at their feet in just the right way to potentially counter his jutsu. And given the fact that Jiraiya could potentially not have this information, that is something that does have to say could be argued could happen. That can also be argued to be part of the reason why he held off on escalating until after his conversation with Tsunade had ended. In the scenario when Jiraiya is confronted by Pain, Jiraiya will notice right away that it's Yahiko that he's speaking to, but he'd be even more confused seeing him with the Rinnegan, knowing that Nagato's the one who had the Rinnegan. And Jiraiya's response to Pain telling him that without the Biju and the other lands, that proxy wars between nations was bound to arise and that the Akatasuki would be able to dictate those wars. Jiraiya's response wouldn't move Nagato to go ahead and have the Diva Path to immediately blow up the village. Instead, when Jiraiya gets asked where is Naruto, Jiraiya would simply turn to the forest outside the village and state that if Pain wants Naruto, he can battle outside of Konoha. Unless Tsunade says something to trigger Nagato, I don't believe that Nagato will blow up the village. Instead, he would have the animal path on its way to Naruto's location so the six paths of pain can be summoned. It would be here that we would have a major change to the story. We would have a truly remarkable fight that occurs. Sage mode Naruto and Sage mode Jiraiya would fight back to back against the six paths of pain outside the village, and because Tsunade would have already been healing the injured, Tsunade would leave Katsuyu with Shizune to continue healing the other villagers, because in this scenario Shizune wouldn't have died, so in this case Tsunade could have gone to the battlefield. As Naruto and Jiraiya began fighting off the six paths and fighting off the animal path summonings, Tsunade would arrive with her Byakugo seal already active. Given how well Jiraiya did fighting in his own battle with the six paths, I see no reason why with the help with Naruto and Tsunade that the trio doesn't do a lot better against the six paths of pain, because you gotta remember, if Jiraiya manages to kill three of them, if Jiraiya has backup, Jiraiya obviously can lead an attack where the six paths can be dealt with. However, due to Tsunade's fighting style requiring her to fight up close in a close quarters situation, I do believe that Tsunade's lack of ranged attacks will come back to bite her, and I believe that at some point, despite Tsunade's overwhelming power, she would have her soul ripped out by the human path, especially if she's hit from the blind side and isn't able to counter when her soul starts to get sucked out. Because we do know that from Nagato's fight with Naruto, that if you can resist and if you can overpower, that there's potential for you to try and keep your soul inside your body and it won't be ripped out right away. However, given the fact she'd be hit from the blind side, Tsunade's soul would be ripped out of her. Given they don't know the abilities of the six paths at this point, it's not that crazy to think of. Naruto and Jiraiya would be fighting the constant summonings of the animal path as well as the other paths that remain. Despite managing to destroy some of the paths, I believe that Tsunade could be had at this point. Now, seeing Tsunade's dead body would ultimately trigger Jiraiya into a rage, likely causing him to take out the Naraka path, especially after seeing it revive the other defeated paths. It would be at this point that Naruto would give into the Kyuubi's influence. And as this happens, I do believe that Jiraiya would recall his conversation with the Elder Toad. Jiraiya would then be blown backwards by the explosion of chakra, as would any of the six paths who hadn't been destroyed. Naruto, with the six-tailed state active, would rip the human path in half in the blink of an eye and destroy all the other paths who weren't the Diva path, and Jiraiya would struggle to his feet, watching Naruto and the Diva path lead the battle even further away from Konoha. Jiraiya would fight back, tears in his eyes as he looked down at Tsunade before placing her body on the ground and running after Naruto, determined not to allow another one of his students to die protecting the village, just as Minato died 16 years ago. Jiraiya would watch in awe as he saw the giant meteor meteor attempt to trap Naruto as he began to sprout the 8th tail. Jiraiya's heart would drop as he attempted to reach Naruto with his shouts, knowing that Naruto could no longer hear his voice and fearing that Naruto would fully transform into the QB. It would be here that Minato would speak with Naruto, and the end of the arc would unfold much the same. The main difference is that Jiraiya would know that Nagato was the one who controlled the dead bodies from a distance as he looked at the pains, and he would be the one who reverse tracked pain, because after all this, Jiraiya would put all the pieces together. Between he and Naruto, giving him a double dose of Talk no Jutsu, Nagato would revive the village and Tsunade would be brought back to life in the process. And it's gonna be here I'm gonna bring this what if to a close, and the reason being is that part 3 is gonna be so insane. You guys are not ready for what's getting ready to happen in part 3. You're not ready for this. So part 2 is done and in the book, and if you guys want to see part 3 exactly 1 week from now, if this video can hit 2,000 likes, I'll have this video up in exactly 1 week from when you're seeing this now. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.